Welcome to my voiceover world. Hey.
Hey, it worked.
Ah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All
How you
right.
doing?
I'm doing okay. That's so crazy. Oh, I every time I deal with computer stuff, something messes up. But I'm glad I found you, and glad
Well,
to know everybody else doesn't do it perfectly all the
yeah.
time.
You're not the only one, though. Deal with that exact same thing
Oh,
also when it comes to
oh,
dealing with a lot of stuff, especially
yeah,
with
and
some people that I meet with. So, yeah,
yeah, and you're technical. That makes me feel much better.
of course.
Yeah.
But
So,
thanks for willing to do this, Tom.
oh, I'm glad to. I'm glad to.
You know, I've been wanting to say this to you, but I've been getting to know a lot about you because of your character Klarion, the witch boy from Young Justice, which in turn has been part of my childhood since I was 8 years old when I look
Oh,
up to you.
really?
Yes,
That's a
and
great character. I love doing it too.
yeah, and to be
He's
honest with you, I never knew about voice acting and everything back then, but then by the time the show One Punch Man, an anime show, appeared before me, it opened my eyes to voice acting and everything. And it's the reason why I discovered all the voice actors out there, and
oh,
thus you included.
ah,
And that's what led me to my passion of wanting to work in the voice acting industry and
yeah.
even working for you when that
Oh,
time comes.
that's great. That's really great. Yeah, that was a fun show to work on. It was in that character, Clarion the Witch Boy is pretty crazy, pretty out there. He's an
Indeed.
evil guy. He's pretty mean.
Yeah. Now then, I have many questions I've been wanting to ask you.
Ask away.
You've been part of so many incredible projects, right? So, how does it feel about being in so many different projects with many characters that you have brought to life?
Wow. I've never thought about it that way, but it's pretty shocking, like because when I do the Comic Cons and stuff like that, and people always come up and they'll remember me from like I did a small part, a tiny little part on The Adventures of Billy and Mandy. And I played Billy's nose, and I think I had maybe two or three lines. But somebody at this Pasadena Comic Con that I was just at came up to me and said, I like when you were Billy's nose and Billy Mandy. And I went, oh my God, you remember that? But so yeah, I've been really lucky to do a lot of different characters in a lot of different shows. So I never take it for granted. I always realize how lucky I am to be able to do that. So, but yeah, it's interesting because I hear from so many different people which character were their favorite or which one they didn't like or which it's really that's why I love doing the Comic Cons. It's so great to meet the fans. It's so wonderful.
I see.
Yeah.
That's very interesting to hear from you, my friend, which leads me to the most important question. How did you get into voice acting, and what was the best decision that you have made so far that has excelled into your voice acting career? For what purpose?
Um, well, that's a really interesting story how I got into voiceover because I had never thought about doing voiceover. I was an actor. I got my SAG card in Michigan when I was 15 years old. I did a commercial and I had been planning on moving to California when I turned 18. So that's what I did. And I didn't realize how lucky I was to move to California to get your Screen Actors, to already have your Screen Actors Guild card because it's a difficult thing to get your card because it's a catch 22. They won't let you audition for SAG projects unless you're SAG, and you're like you can't get your SAG card unless it's very difficult to do. But I was so lucky to get mine back in Michigan. And so I'd been doing plays in high school and doing all that stuff and doing community theater. And I was a regular on camera actor. And I've done a lot of stuff. I've done just a bunch of TV and movies and stuff. And one day I was sitting in my agent's office and they had a voiceover department, but I never given it any thought. I never gave it a second thought to do voiceover. And I was talking with my commercial agent, and these two guys walked by and they stopped me and they go, "Hey, God, you have a great voice." He goes, "Are you represented for voiceover?" And I thought about it. I went, "No, I'm not." And he goes, "Well, I'd love to represent you." I mean, I was so lucky, and they were like one of the top three voiceover agencies in the country. They were a huge agency, and so I signed up with them, and I remember reading for at those days you used to have to drive into the agent's office, and they had a director that they always worked with that would work with you in the booth. So you'd get the script and you'd look at it in that lobby, and then you go in and you do it with the director that you're used to working with. And I read for probably 15 to 20 things a week. I would go into the agency, and for about a year I didn't book one job. Not one job. And I was reading for so many, I was reading for hundreds of things. And so then uh one day I went in and they called me and I went into Disney. But by this time, so the two guys that were the agents, one of them turned out to be Jamie Thomason. And do you know who that is?
I know who he is. The
Yeah,
man who does a lot of voice directing for
yes,
almost
he
a
does.
few years through
Yes,
through Gargoyles and through Young Justice, through everything.
yes,
It
yes.
seems like he is the person who brought you in, the very
He
reason
is.
why.
He is. He is the direct reason. Him and the other agent, whose name is Jeff Howell, who directs a lot of commercials and promos and all this stuff. They both left the agency and Jamie went and worked, I think, at Disney. Yes, he went to work at Disney, and Jeff went and worked at CBS and NBC. He did all this other stuff. So then other agents came in, but then one day I got a call from my agent Linda McCarroll at the time, and she said to me, she said, "Tom, they want you to read for Gargoyles. It's over at Disney at 11 o'clock or whatever." So I go over there and I walk in the booth, I see Jamie, and I'm like, "Oh my God, Jamie," because I hadn't seen him in a long time. And I read, and then I think I had a call back, and then I got it. And that was literally the first job. Well, I did one little commercial before that for a radio commercial, the Oregon State Lottery commercial. So that was the only thing I did it in a year. So when I went in and they finally, I finally got Gargoyles. I mean, that was a big deal. I looked at the sheet of all the actors, and it was all these celebrities, and it was great voice actors, and like Jeff Glenn Bennett and Ed Asner and Tim Curry and Sheena Easton and
And
CCH Pounder.
and most importantly, Keith
Ooh,
David.
Keith David. Oh, what a guy. What a great man and a great talent. He just got an award, a big voiceover award. I think just a few days ago, maybe it was this weekend. They gave him an award, a voiceover something or other award. But what a great guy. I got to work with Cree Summer and Sally Richardson, and the cast was just amazing. And we did it back in those days. We would sit in a semicircle and we would go in, and for the first 2 hours we'd read it through, and the directors would stop and say change this or do that or add this or take that out. And then we would actually do the recording, and they would record it in little, this scene and then this scene and then this scene. So we were there. It was a 4 hour session. um, and it was just amazing because to see all these pros work, to see Jeff Bennett, sit next to me and like have a conversation with himself because he's so talented. He would be playing two different characters and he could do it all in one take. This character, that character. It was amazing to me, and I'm like, oh my gosh! So it was the best way to be introduced to voiceover, and so that's how it got started. And then I got noticed in the voiceover community by doing Gargoyles. And then shortly after I got Gargoyles, I got the Twisted Tales of Felix the Cat. So I was playing Felix, and that got me even more noticed in the voiceover world. So then I was doing Gargoyles and doing tons of commercials. And but how I think that the way I got into it was so unusual and so not normal that somebody recognizes or likes your voice, an agency you happen to be at. So but other than that, how the what I say to other people that want to get into it, there's so much online now. There's like a thing, I think it's called Voice 123 or Voiceover 123, and it's a um you pay a certain amount of money and you can go on and do all your auditions and stuff like that. But there's classes that I don't the classes are always great to take. If there's a class that I took after I'd been working quite a bit. I took a commercial acting class with Kalmanson and Kelmanson, and they're online. And they're a casting company, so they cast commercials and they're teachers. So when you're in the class, you're being taught by somebody who can cast you in a commercial. And that's what happened. When I was in that class, I booked like 10 commercials. I was in a 6-week class and I booked 10 commercials, and probably six of them were through them. So I say classes are a really good way to start, and reading anything out loud that you grab. If you're like watching TV and there's a commercial on and you want to just grab any like newspaper or anything that has some kind of ads or stuff like that, and just read it out loud and get used to hearing your voice, which nowadays everything, you've never known anything different, you know, other than computers. You're, very astute with computers. And but back then you didn't have that. You had to go into the booth and read, and you couldn't do stuff online. But now it's that's the best way to do it, is go take classes online, or now you can take classes, in person. But you got to be living in a, like one of the big city. You before you had to be living in a big city like Chicago, New York, or LA. Um, but now you can live pretty much anywhere, and you can get an agent and do that. Do you want to do that? Do you want to do voiceover yourself, or
Actually, that has been my biggest desire, actually, which is why I became one voice actor myself. The
yeah.
only thing I have to do is seek auditions and everything.
Well, you've got a great voice, Sebastian. Your voice is so great.
It's so funny how everybody kept saying that to me. You know who even said the same thing?
Who?
The people that I got to meet the other day in a convention in
Oh,
Jacksonville, Kari
really?
Walgren and Ben Deskin,
Oh,
who,
she's a
who
big
they
deal, Kari. I've
and
worked with Kari a lot.
she got to meet me at long last for
And
over,
Ben.
yes, indeed. And
He's awesome.
they both got to finally meet me in person
And aren't
just
they
as
both
long as
so kind?
they
They're both
are.
so nice.
They are indeed.
And
But
they told you that. They said you've got a great voice, huh?
yes, they did, along with
Oh,
everyone else that I met
yeah.
with.
Well,
But you
you
know
do?
something? Oh, I apologize if I may say this, but you saying about how you got into voice acting, that's how you got in there because of everything. To be real honest, I was gonna ask you about what was your first ever character you played as, but thanks to you telling me that your first ever was Lexington, I
Yep.
now realize that it's all just in case if I ever do a voice showcase for you, just like how I did for everybody else for 4 years. Like recently, I did it for Richard McGungle, and not just for him, but for Billy Kometz, the Brad Venable, through everybody that I have done for 4 years. And you, my
Wow.
friend, will do the same. And that way you will have all the recognition you deserve. That way, these days, you will be eventually be brought into more projects that are yet to come.
Thank you
That
for
is
that,
my way of
Sebastian.
doing things.
Yeah. Well, that's it's just so wonderful that you got to meet those people. And Kari is so great, and Ben and all the people you've. It's it's amazing what how things happen. How you how that I got an agent and how you will get an agent. I said there's those voiceover things, and there's also a list of agents you can find of reputable agents in Los Angeles, in New York, in Chicago that you can go online and find and maybe check them out and see that they're reputable. And that's what I do. You have a demo yet?
I did have a demo,
Oh,
and
you
I've
did?
already uploaded it to my YouTube channel just in case so that everyone be able to see it when
Yeah.
that time comes. So
Yeah.
by all
Well,
means, it will be all sorted out.
oh, and that's good because that'd be a good way for you to get an agent and then submit your demo because I know you can go to these agencies and you can just submit your demo and say, "Hi, my name is Sebastian. I'm very interested in doing voiceover, but and sometimes you get a call, sometimes you don't. You got to play the odds and get your stuff out there. That's
And
the best way.
that's the idea right there. And I'm
Hmm.
glad you say that. Now,
Yeah.
without further ado, I'd like to ask you about the characters that you played as. But now, how does it feel about stepping into the role of Peppered Pesky in the Buzz on Maggie? The Buzz
But
on Maggie, I mean.
that was a really fun show to do. And because it had some great people on it, Jessica DiCicco, who's a good friend of mine, and my dearest friend Candy Milo was on that show, and they uh God, it was Tara Strong did a couple. She was recurring on the show, and it was so fun. And to play that character, he was just such a cute little guy, and he was so cute. And the director on the show is named Charlie Adler. Of course, I'm sure you know who that is.
Oh,
He's
I know who he
Yeah,
is.
Charlie's awesome. And Charlie's a good friend of mine, and he directed all the episodes on The Buzz on Maggie. And he is just so much fun. He's just so wild and out there, and he makes you laugh. And he's such a good guy, and he's a great director. And so I was sad when that show went off the air because it was doing really well in the ratings and it was so good and people loved it. And then I heard that there was fighting in between Disney and they've worked with producers and something like that. So they just canned the show instead of keeping it on because it was such a good show.
I see. So
But
that's
that,
what you So that's what you love about being in that show. Because all I know is that I got to know about that show because of not just you, but Jessica and everybody else there. To be quite honest, I did notice that well, that Charlie Adler did a good job directing into it right there. Plus, the
yeah.
best part is that
Mm,
the character herself, Maggie, but Pesky, eventually returned to the Chibiverse of years later,
I
with
heard that.
Jessica DiCicco recurring the character.
And
Plus,
I
I
heard she
did
did a
note.
song.
Oh yeah, yeah, it is. Is that
Oh,
the best part is Jessica DiCicco became a recent anime voice actor herself, just like Josh Keaton did years ago.
oh
So
yeah,
that's
Josh.
why
I know Josh. Yeah.
Josh and Jessica became both anime voice actors together the same year, and they've been part of many projects ever since, through Demon Slayer, through Yashahime, Pluto, all of them.
Yeah, Josh Keaton, he's amazing. He is an amazing actor, and Jessica is awesome. Just
Yes,
wonderful. I just love Jessica.
she is super awesome when it comes to
Yeah,
doing a lot of cool characters at times like
yeah,
this.
yeah.
Now, without further ado, I have the other question I'd like to ask you is this, but playing Snap in the Rice Krispies
Uh,
commercials must have been so exciting, right? So what's your most favorite aspect about bringing that character to life?
um, that was a really that was an unexpected job because I went and read for it and I thought, oh, I'm not going to get this. I don't. I just had a feeling I wasn't going to get it, and then I did, and I was like, wow, he's like a internationally known little character that's been around for years and years and years, and he did have a voice before me, and I knew the guy that played him. The guy, it's got an actor named Kevin West and who doesn't do a lot of voiceover. He's a TV and movie actor. But I replaced him, and I don't know why. People change characters, you never know what the reason why is. Um, but with Snap, I was just so excited because everybody you mentioned, I'm the voice of Snap. Everybody knows, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, you're kidding!" So, the directors on that were really they just said we want a young kind of hip guy kind of character, and so I just did what I thought they would like, and they liked it, and I did it for like 5 years, and then they let the characters go, and they just made them not talk anymore. So, but it was a 5 year run, and it was awesome to do, and I think I'm in the Kellogg's museum in Michigan. My voice is there as Snap. So that was a really fun job.
I see. So
Yeah.
that's what you like about being that character, right? Because all I know
It's-
is that Rice Krispies has been around since my childhood, right there, since I was 6 years old.
Oh yeah,
Honest,
and way before that,
yeah. Honestly, you being part of it was a very cool thing right there. But I'll tell you this: I did met one of the voice actors of that commercial who actually does one of the characters there, and the name of that man is Dino, the guy who did the character Pop.
Uh
Dino and Enderad.
Rotted?
Enderad, yes.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yes, I've
What did he
interviewed him
do?
months ago
Yeah,
and
Zeno's a good friend of mine. I didn't know he did that.
yes, and that's why I'm telling you this, so that
Oh,
you, my friend, can finally understand everything right there. With
yeah,
great knowledge comes greater aspects that will make you be like, "Oh, I remember now."
yeah, and I know Dino very well.
Yes,
I'd known Dino for like
a
probably
very long time.
8 years. Yeah. Yeah.
I've,
And I knew his wife very well, Mary Kay Bergman.
yeah.
So I knew her very well. She kind of pushed me into getting into voiceover because I would see her in the agency before they asked me to be in one of their clients. I would see her in the commercial office, and I was trying to convince her to doing on camera stuff, and she goes, "Oh, I do a lot of voiceover," and she goes, "I'm okay. I don't really want to do that much." She wasn't pushing the on camera. And so I was pushing her to do it, and she was pushing me. You need to do voiceover. You need to do voiceover. So yeah, so Mary Kay and I were friends before Dino, before I even met Dino. And,
Wow.
yeah, and then as her passing, Dino and I got closer.
Yeah. That's the
Uh,
most interesting thing I'm beginning to hear from you. I never knew that happened until you told me. But hey,
yeah,
I'm glad you told me that. And that's the reason why I interviewed Dino for, to gain
yeah,
understanding from him.
he's a good guy. He's a
He
real
is,
good guy.
he
Yeah.
is good
There's so
indeed.
many great people in voiceover. That was one of the things when I was doing a lot of TV and movie and stuff. People would have attitude. The casting people sometimes wouldn't treat you that well. And when I'd gotten into voiceover, it was so different that everybody was nice. The casting directors were like, when you'd walk in the door, they'd go, "Hi, Tom, can I get you a cappuccino?" And I mean, everybody was nice. And 99.9% of the actors were all really, really nice. And it's that way, which I'm sure you've discovered yourself. There's so many, and they're just all so kind and so wonderful. And in movies and TV, it wasn't like that all the time. So
That's
that's one of the things I loved about voiceover. And I pretty much stopped when I got Gargoyles. I stayed doing some movies and TV occasionally. But then it got where voiceover got so busy, and it was so different to go to an audition for an on-camera thing because it would take sometimes an hour. You'd be waiting. In voiceover, they get you right in and get you out. Get right in. Hey, how are you doing? You read, you go. And it's really fast. You could do, several auditions in one day.
I
So,
see. That's very nice to hear from you. Now,
mhm.
without further ado, being part of the show The Spectacular Spider-Man as the voice of Tanker must have been the most coolest thing, right? So what's the most thrilling thing about voicing him in the entire show?
Um, the most thrilling thing about that, because that character, the Tinker, he never really had a lot to say. But my friend Greg Weisman, who created Gargoyles, and
He also created the show at the same time. I know
yeah,
because I looked it up.
yeah, he's an amazing man, and he's one of my very closest friends. We became great friends after working on Gargoyles. And then he would bring me in to read for every show that he was doing. He would bring me in. That's why, Young Justice League, the Spectacular Spider-Man, and Greg would always bring me in for stuff and give me great things to do. Um, but yeah,
I see. So that's what you like about being in Spectacular Spider-Man. 'Cause hey,
yeah,
it's been
it,
part of my
it's
childhood
material.
right there. And honestly, I never knew it was canceled back then until the day I discovered it. But then, but I did notice this,
Hmm.
that I have learned that from Josh Keaton's interview that the real reasoning why it got canceled is because of Sony owning Spider-Man, and that Disney, on the other hand, is trying to trying to get on Sonny's business right there, like it was all for nothing. It's
Yeah,
like, oh, every time they do a Spider-Man type movie like Venom or something, they're just wasting their lives on that. So that's
yeah,
why they ended up stopping making some kind of Spider-Man type spin-offs
yeah.
stuff in
It
order
was
to stop with all this nonsense.
Yeah, it was very disappointing when they canceled that, and it was very upsetting for Josh, especially because Josh had uh, a big thing put on his car. He had a Mini Cooper, and he had a whole Spider-Man really cool thing painted onto the top of his car. And I'm sure,
Oh,
did he tell you that?
I never even got to interview him, but I never knew
Oh,
he does that until right now. But hey, I'm glad you
He
told
did
me.
that, and it was I remember feeling so bad for him because he had that on his car. But he'll always be Spider-Man. He'll always be one of the Spider-Mans, and I'm sure he doesn't have the car anymore because that was several years
Y-
ago. But
Yeah.
he got it painted, right? Spider-Man climbing on his roof of his car. It was so cool.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah,
interesting to hear. I
yeah.
did notice that the last time he did Spider-Man was in that movie Across the Spider-Verse, where both
Oh,
he and
really?
Yuri Lowenthal got to both return to play Spider-Man at once, where he always says only one line. We know it's hard, but it's the truth, Miles. That's all he
Ah,
said there.
oh,
Because if you
really?
watch that movie, you'll
No,
see. Because
I
trust
will
me,
watch it to see that now.
because trust me, I know because I looked it up. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's my
Oh,
suggestion to you.
that's so cool.
Indeed. Now,
I'm glad.
without further, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Without further ado, another project that Greg Weisman brought you in will be this. In the show 3X 3 Eyes, what stood
Oh,
out about you voicing Kineo the monkey?
oh my gosh. Yeah, that was really interesting. I can't believe you found that. That's crazy. But that was like one of the first anime things I think I'd ever done. And I was very excited to do it. And it was the first time I was doing, the lip sync, what do you call it?
Lip syncing.
Yeah,
Oh,
lip syncing
mouth
to,
flaps right there,
yes.
where you
Yeah.
talk in another language to make them understand what you're really saying.
Yeah, so that was very interesting. But of course, Greg made it easy, like he makes everything. But it was really cool to do that, to see it and then try to match up the lip flap and match it. And I was shockingly good at it. And I think because I was trained as a dancer, so I think timing, they would give you a timing in your cans and go ding, 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 and then you speak. And so it was really I think that my dance background helped me with doing that. And Felix the Cat, when I did that, that was all. I had to do the lip sync on that because with that show, they were casting it for 9 months and they didn't know who they wanted yet. And so every month I would go in and read. And it got down to where they had to get, and Sue Blue was the director, who's a dear friend of mine and an awesome director, awesome actress. She had they used her to do the demo so they could start drawing because they were already starting to animate the cartoon. I think it was done in Korea. So they had to have somebody, they had to start animating it because the Twisted Tales of Felix the Cat was already bought and set to air on a certain day on Saturday. So they had to start drawing. And meanwhile, they were still auditioning people. So it got down between me and Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens, and Mayim Bialik. And then I got it out of those two. So they narrowed it all the way down. And that was an interesting project to do because I had to follow the lip flap throughout the whole thing with every episode of that
I
one. And that
I see.
it
So
was
that's
interesting.
So that's what you love about being in that show. Because all I know is that I got to know about that show because of, well, let's just say I got to know you from in it because there were two English dub comparisons. One was the animes one that was made in 1992, and then
Oh,
2000
really?
is where you guys came along. And that's
Yeah,
and honestly, the Greg Weisman one is actually way better because it
is it
has a lot
really?
of good syncing. Plus, the best part is Keith David being part of it was the very unique choice, and that's what led to him being part of a second anime project in 2023, which is called
Yeah.
Pluto, which I made a video about that for him,
Hey.
since he and Dr. Eggman himself, Mike Pollock, ended up interacting with each other.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, you search up the that and you will see it. Because trust me, you're gonna love that anime,
That's
Pluto.
that's so funny that I didn't even know that Keith was in the 3 by 3 eyes.
Yes, he does the character Mama, and you look up that the entire thing, and you'll see. You'll be like,
Oh,
oh, that's why he was brought into some anime. Because
I'm
of
gonna try to
that.
find that. How would I find that?
If you
Probably
search
YouTube.
up, if you search up behind the voice actor's website, you'll
Okay.
see it right there.
Okay.
He
Maybe
was
you could
originally
find it
played
and
by
send it
Steve
to me.
Kramer, but then Keith David came along, and everyone loves
Oh,
Keith's voice acting better.
yes, they did. Keith is the best. He's the best of the best. And you know, it's so great. He is such a nice man. And
Indeed.
he's so funny. He's so funny. He plays all these real serious, deep voice characters, and he is so funny. He's got great jokes. He just cracks me up. I saw him in Minneapolis. I did a convergence, and we got to see each other. And we hadn't seen each other in a long time, but he's just such a nice man. Ah, talented as unbelievable. He's just an amazing man all around. So
Interesting to
yeah.
hear from you.
Yeah, but I didn't know
I
he. I'm going to look for that. Maybe you could look for it on Behind the Voices and send it to me.
Oh, trust me, that's the idea there.
Okay,
Now then, there's
I'm going
just
to call
one
you.
last question I'd like to ask you due to the time limit
Sure.
there. So I'll ask you in a quick way. Klarion the Witch Boy in Young Justice must have been so awesome to play as, right? Like your
Hmm.
legendary thing. So what's your most favorite thing about bringing that character into the entire anime? Oh, the project, I mean. Oh,
It was I loved it because the I just loved that character. He was so fun to do and he was so evil and yet and the direction, Greg was always there and there was a bunch of other people in the booth, but it was great. And I was so excited to bring that character to life. It was great, and he's still. I just keep hoping they're going to bring him back or bring back the show. Everybody wants that, but that he's such a great character. And then I did him in a Lego.
Lego DC
Yes,
super
yeah,
villains.
yeah. Look at you, Sebastian. You know your stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was. I did a little part in that, and I remember going, "Wow, how cool!" Because that character is one of my favorite. Besides Lexington, I think he is my favorite.
Interesting. That's
Yeah,
what you like about playing him. Because all I
yeah,
know is that I got to know about Young Justice because it's part of my childhood. And the last
yeah,
time I saw Young Justice was with the fourth season right there, where you eventually have to team up with Kevin Michael Richardson in order to take down Erica Eshi, the anime voice
yes.
actress.
Oh, she's
Because,
amazing
hey,
too, Erica.
because you two teaming up was the right choice there. Just makes it the right choices and just understanding for who we are on the inside. But the best part
Yeah,
is I
hmm.
made a video for you on my
You did.
YouTube channel involving characters and voice actors of the entire fourth season, which I included you in there in order
Oh
to
my
give you the
gosh,
recognition you deserve.
you got to
Also,
send
so
me
I
that
can
too.
gain your support to make the fifth season happening, since everyone's
Oh,
been demanding for it for years.
yeah, people
Because
want it
if
really
because
badly.
they're tired of cliffhangers, and that's the reason why I made that video to gain your
Yeah.
support to make it happen. Because
Oh
if
yeah,
not,
believe
then it
me.
would cease to exist forever.
It would be great if they did that because, and I appreciate you doing that. And I hope you'll send that to me. I'd love to watch it.
That's the idea there.
All right. You got it. You got two things you're sending me. That and what else?
The
The
video I
three by
made for
three,
you,
3 by 3 eyes.
of course.
And I want you to send me the video you made, of course.
Indeed.
Yes.
Well, Tom, it's such an honor to finally meet you at long last, my friend.
It's nice to meet you, Sebastian. I'm glad
Yes,
we got to do this, and I wish it could have been longer, but in a few months we can do another one.
of course. There's one
Yes.
more thing I like to ask you before you
Sure.
go in a quick
Sure.
way. When people look back on your work, how do you want to be remembered as a voice actor? In a quick way, by all means.
I want to be remembered as being a great guy and a nice and easy to work with, which I am all the time. I was going to say most of the time, but all the time I'm easy to work with, and I love working with the other actors, and that's my answer.
Well, I'm glad you say that, my friend, and that's the reason why I'm going to be working with you one of these days,
One of these
especially for Young
days,
Justice when that time comes. Whenever
wouldn't
there's
that
the
be
fifth
great?
season comes, then
You got a
I'd be
part
the
in that? That wouldn't that be wonderful?
yes, it will
So
be
you got to
indeed.
get your stuff out there and send your demo to some agents and just make sure your demo's not too long. A lot
Don't
of people
worry.
make it too long. You got to get it like in about like a minute and a half at the longest.
Of
Because I had a really long demo at first, and my
I
agent,
see.
that's too long. You got to cut it down. They want to hear
Yeah,
you. Boom, boom.
of course, because the truth is, my demos aren't that long. Not at
Good.
all.
That's good to hear.
Of
Because that's a
course.
big mistake that people make. I listened to a friend's demo the other day and it was like 2.5 minutes. And I said, you're going to lose them. You got to have them wanting more.
I
So that,
see.
yeah, less is more in that area.
Of course.
Okay, Sebastian, I know you got to go. Our time limit is up, but it was wonderful to meet you. And let's do this again sometime and send me that stuff
I
and,
will.
and get your homework done and send out your demos to some agents.
I will, my friend.
All
Take
right.
care, and I'll be seeing you around through
All right.
social
Thank you,
media.
Sebastian. It was great to meet you.
You too.
Okay. Bye bye.
Want to keep up with my journey? Follow me on social media for more updates, behind the scenes moments, and all the fun along the way.